Bugliosi was putting together an A-team of witnesses for the upcoming trial. Linda was to be his star witness, and there were others willing to talk about Manson's abuse, including potentially Barbara Hoyt and Stephanie Schramm. Plus, Bugliosi planned to get Jacobson and Watkins on the stand to talk about Helter Skelter. Charlie was still trying to get to Kasabian, unsuccessfully, as she recovered from giving birth to her new baby boy. March 4th, Gypsy made another visit to Fleischman's office. She told him, in the presence of his law partner Ronald Goldman, if Linda testifies, 30 people are going to do something about it. Linda was being kept in an isolation cell off the infirmary. She had no contact with the other inmates. Deputies brought her meals. That month, Charlie was shocked to discover that Bernard Lotzapapa Crow was alive. Manson was being returned to jail after a hearing, and Bernard Crow walked past him. Manson did a double take, then grinned and told Crow he hoped he didn't take the attempt on his life too seriously. On March 11th, Susan was approved to replace attorney Richard Caballero with Day Shin. Almost immediately after his appointment, Shin announced that his client was formally recanting her grand jury testimony. Bugliosi practically shat himself, jubilantly. It meant that her testimony could be used against her co-defendants, and she was no longer exempt from the death penalty. In early March, prosecutors drove Linda to Benedict Canyon. Between tearful breakdowns, she walked them through the events of August 9th. They also drove, at her instructions, to the places where she threw out the knives, the clothes, and encountered the angry older couple, the Webbers, after the murders. On March 13th, she was sent back to jail. Baby Angel was flown with Linda's mother to New Hampshire, while his mother remained in Los Angeles, waiting to tell her story. 2 days later, the prosecution took Linda on the route she remembered from the night of the LaBianca murders. On March 15th, Bruce Davis was released from jail. On the 19th, Manson again requested that he be allowed to represent himself. The judge denied his order, but did allow Charlie to replace his attorney, Charles Holopeter, with Ronald Hughes. Hughes, 35 years old, was with the Los Angeles Public Defender's Office. He was unmarried and lived in a friend's garage, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. Hughes was viewed as a hippie lawyer, and thus Manson agreed to be represented by him, at least for now. Meanwhile, Pat Krenwinkel's father hired Paul Fitzgerald to represent his daughter. Fitzgerald left the public defender's office for this gig. Paul Watkins was prepared to testify at Manson's upcoming trial and spoke at length to Bugliosi and the prosecutor's team. But in March, Watkins was badly burned in a camper fire. He'd been visiting with Linda's husband, Bob Kasabian, and Charlie Blackbeard Melton. According to his memoir, I parked my car in front of Blackbeard's place and went inside. Blackbeard wasn't there, but Bob was. He said Linda had gotten her head together and was ready to tell everything. He said if I agreed to testify, Charlie's goose will be cooked. I listened for a while, then went out to the van. It was dark by then. I lit a joint and lay down on the bed in the back. I guess that's when I fell asleep. Sometime around midnight, I woke up gagging. The inside of the van was filled with smoke. Flames were licking up around the front seat. I tried to kick open the rear door, but it wouldn't budge. The smell of burning plastic and enamel permeated the air. My lungs sputtered. There was no oxygen, only the toxic white-hot smoke which funneled into my throat. I tried to scream, but the sounds were muted, choked off in guttural groans. I smashed my fist through one of the side windows, but the cold air only fanned the flames. For what seemed like minutes, I remained in a state of panic, continuing to kick at the rear door while my mind lapsed into a slow, reeling, kaleidoscopic rerun of deaths by fire. I felt the hairs on my body being singed. The smell sent me into convulsions, and I vomited. Finally, an impulse prompted me to dive headlong through the flames onto the front seat. I kicked open the door and rolled out onto the ground, then got up and raced to the house to wake Bob and Blackbeard. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was in shock. Blackbeard had wrapped me in a blanket. I stood in the corner of the living room asking for morphine. but they didn't understand me. They couldn't. My vocal cords had been burned to a crisp. Blackbeard rode with me to the hospital. I remember him sitting next to me. "You're going to be okay, Paul. You're going to be okay." The next thing I remember was being given a shot of morphine and wheeled into a room. I remained unconscious 3 days. When I woke up, my mother was sitting beside me, cutting what remained of my hair. She said everything was going to be okay and for me to rest. She said, too, that my brothers and sisters were waiting to see me. So were Paul Crockett and Brooks Poston. During the week I spent at my folks', reporters and police continued to call and come by in droves. My parents kept them away. I couldn't talk anyway. Fate works in mysterious ways. At the very time I'm asked to testify in court, in front of Charlie, before the world, I am rendered voiceless. Clem later boasted that it was he who tried to kill me. In light of other murders and murder attempts, it would appear a very good possibility. Crockett, Juan, and Brooks took me to Las Vegas and bought me a steak dinner. They didn't talk much about the fire, but I sensed what they were thinking. The DA's office had been calling them regularly, asking them to exert pressures on me to testify. At that point, I didn't want to testify. I had a perfect excuse. I couldn't talk. Still waiting for Charles Tex Watson to be extradited, the prosecutor requested and received a continuance for trial until summer. Bugliosi wasn't lead prosecutor for Beausoleil, but he was second. Bobby's trial wasn't expected to last as long as the Tate LaBianca trial. For Charlie's trial, the bug knew that Watkins wasn't ready to take the stand, but he lined up other witnesses, although some remained on the fence. Remember, Manson ordered the murder of Shorty Shea, a person he believed had ratted him out. The family damn well knew what the penalty might be for testifying. Barbara Hoyt was terrified for her life and that of her family, but she also felt a moral responsibility to tell the truth and was seriously considering Bugliosi's request to take the stand. On April 13th, Manson filed a motion to dismiss Judge Keene, claiming prejudice. The motion was carried, and Judge Charles Older was appointed over the Tate LaBianca trial. Judge Keene was only too happy to step aside. However, he was still presiding over the Beausoleil trial. The prosecution team in Beausoleil's murder trial interviewed Al Springer. Springer may have been a biker and an outlaw, but he hated Manson and what had happened to his buddy Danny DiCarlo. He was a willing witness, testifying about the alleged use of the cutlass sword at the crime scene, linking Manson to the killing of Hinman. He also told investigators about Manson bragging of killing people when he went to Spawn Ranch in mid-August. When Bobby took the stand at his trial, he claimed that Charlie killed Gary. That April, Mary flew back from Wisconsin for Bobby's retrial and was promptly arrested on a check forging charge and held over. She had won immunity from prosecution at Hinman's death by agreeing to take the stand. However, she was reluctant and highly conflicted. At the trial, she admitted that Bobby stabbed Gary and was responsible for his death. The prosecution was disappointed. They wanted her to reveal not only Beausoleil's actions, but that of Manson, Davis, and Atkins. It was clear to them that she incriminated Bobby to protect Charlie. She then flew back to Wisconsin. On April 20th, Brenda married Bruce Davis in Nevada. Davis signed the marriage license as Mark Rollins Grant. This was a marriage of convenience to prevent either from testifying at Bobby's trial. On the 21st, Bobby was convicted of first-degree murder. Once again back in Wisconsin, Mary was hit hard by the guilty verdict and became depressed, even suicidal. She felt she had betrayed a brother. Sandy and Squeaky flew out and convinced her to recant her testimony. Ahead of sentencing, Bobby dismissed his legal counsel and asked to represent himself. Judge Keene approved his request. Bobby then filed a motion to request a retrial and recalled Mary as a witness, forcing her return to California. Mary subsequently filed an affidavit stating that her testimony at trial was false, given under duress. Whiteley and Gunther were really upset with her. They'd had no idea when they offered her immunity that she actually helped kill Gary. They were pretty sour that she was going to get off scot-free. When Mary returned to the courtroom, Her previous attorney was not available, so she appeared before Judge Keene without counsel. Whiteley and Gunther were hoping she would incriminate herself without jeopardizing Beausoleil's conviction. From the book Justice Overruled, Unmasking the Criminal Justice System by Burton S. Katz, former prosecutor and Superior Court judge, lead prosecutor during Beausoleil's second trial. Bruner was obviously torn between her loyalty to Manson and Beausoleil and her own well-being. After being handed her life back, she was going to throw it all away, including her son, whose custody she was desperately trying to regain. As his own counsel, Bobby began to question Mary. Katz recalled that, "I was impressed with his ability to frame a comprehensive question and ask appropriate follow-up questions. He also interposed objections, and while they fell on deaf ears, they were quite well done. I couldn't help thinking about Beausoleil's natural gifts. He was handsome, articulate, intelligent, a quick study. What seed or gene had distorted an otherwise almost perfect genetic blueprint, allowing him to execute another human being, a friend?" From the official court records. Bobby, you love your child very much, don't you? Mary, yes. Bobby, I would imagine that he probably means more to you than anything else in the world. Isn't that correct? Mary, than most anything else. Bobby, anything means more to you? Mary, yeah. Bobby, could you tell the court what it is? Mary, it means more to me, Bobby, that I undo what I did to you. Bobby, when you say that, to undo what you did you not tell the truth at that time? Mary, that's right. Mary then indicated that investigator Gunther coerced her to claim that Bobby stabbed Hinman. Judge Keene interjected, questioning Mary himself. Judge Keene, what did he say? Mary, he was telling me how wonderful they were being to me, and how everybody out here was ratting on me and bad-mouthing me, and how if I felt anything for my son, that I owed it to him to give a statement against Bobby. Judge Keene, did that end the conversation then, between you and Deputy Gunther? Mary, around this time, I got to crying, and Whiteley came back into the room. Judge Keene, now tell us what was said. Bobby objected and tried to resume his own questioning. Bobby, Your Honor, I object to the court questioning the witness. I am completely capable. She is my witness. I'd like to question her now, if I may. Judge Keene, all right, tell us what you said, what you told the officers. Bobby, Your Honor, she has given this information already. She told the court that it was the same as what she testified to, or at least basically. There's a 40-page written statement, Your Honor, of a conversation that happened later, after she gave her original statement, and it has been testified to by Sergeant Whiteley that the questions that he asked were based on statements given. Judge Keene, just a minute, Mr. Beausoleil. Your objection is overruled. Tell us what you told the officers. Mary, I told the officers that Bobby killed Gary. That is the main thing I told the officers. Judge Keene, what else did you tell them? Mary, I told them that Bobby and Gary had a fight. I told them that Charlie cut Gary with a sword. I told them we had been in that house for a couple of days, Bobby and Sadie and I. Judge Keene, was that statement true? Mary, parts of it. Judge Keene, all right, what parts were true and what parts were not true? Mary, Bobby didn't kill Gary. Judge Keene, who killed Gary? Mary, I don't have to answer that. Judge Keene, yes, you do have to answer that, and... Bobby, Your Honor, I object, Your Honor. Judge Keene, you are ordered to answer that by this court. Mary, I'll take the Fifth Amendment on that. Judge Keene, you may not take the Fifth Amendment. As I indicated to you, you could not pick and choose what questions you were going to answer. Mary, I have the right not to incriminate myself. Judge Keene threatened to hold Mary in contempt of court. Bobby, may I be heard? Judge Keene, Mr. Beausoleil, you may not. Your objection is overruled. Bobby, you haven't heard my objection. How can it be overruled? Judge Keene, just a minute, Mr. Beausoleil. I've ordered you to answer that question as to who killed Gary Hinman. Mary, I'm telling you that I don't have to incriminate myself as you advise me. Judge Keene, you tell me in your own words truthfully what occurred in that Hinman house to the best of your knowledge, and I want the truth. Bobby, Judge Keene, you are denying this woman a fair trial according to Miranda v. Arizona, according to the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, the Due Process Clause, according to the rights under the 5th Amendment, according to her rights to have an attorney present. Judge Keene, Mr. Beausoleil, your objections, all of them, are overruled. Bobby, all of my objections are overruled, even the ones I'm going to make? Judge Keene, go ahead and tell me what happened. Bobby, in other words... Judge Keene, Mr. Beausoleil, this is the last time I'm going to tell you. When I am finished talking to this witness, I will tell you so, and you may ask her some questions. I do not want you to interrupt me. Bobby and the judge continued to argue while Mary tried to avoid answering the question. Remember, she won immunity by agreeing to testify truthfully. If she admitted that she lied, she could lose her immunity deal. And if she admitted that she participated in Hinman's murder, she could be charged. Mary, your question was that I tell you everything that went on. That was your question? Judge Keene, yes, that's what I want. Mary, and if that is your question, I can't answer that because it would be self-incriminating. Judge Keene, I am instructing you to answer the question. Mary, I've answered it. After several more minutes of argument between the judge and Beausoleil, a recess was called. During the recess, Mary was remanded back to the custody of the sheriff's department. During the break, attorney Ernest Graves was appointed to represent her, since Mary's attorney was not available. Graves was able to broker a meeting during the break between his client and Bobby. When court resumed, Mary went before Judge Keene again. In the afternoon session, she appeared with Graves. This time Brunner appeared tired and confused. Graves asked for a clarification of Brunner's status if she were to testify fully and truthfully at this hearing. The immunity agreement was reiterated with emphasis that she was obligated, as jointly agreed, to testify in future proceedings against Charlie Manson and other family members. Judge Keene, sensing a change, immediately withdrew the contempt charge, making it clear that he would not use this to compel her testimony, and emphasizing that what she was about to do must be totally free and voluntary. Brunner wanted to know if she was free to go back to Wisconsin if I testify for the prosecution. Beausoleil looked pale and scared as he sensed what was coming. Mary, if I testify today, then I can just walk out of the courtroom and go back to Wisconsin? The judge responded yes. Attorney Graves, Your Honor, I believe the witness is again prepared to meet the question whether she is prepared to testify in this case. Judge Keene, what's your decision now, Miss Brunner? Mary, I'll testify. Judge Keene, do I have your assurance that anything you are going to testify to at this time is going to be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mary, yes. Judge Keene, in its entirety, without question, is that correct? Mary, that's right. Mary admitted why she had changed her testimony. Mary, Bobby got the gas chamber, and that to me is the same. You're doing the same thing to him as he did to Gary, and you made me a part of the second one too. So I filed it hoping that Bobby could get a retrial and not get the death penalty. Judge Keene then asked Mary to please tell him who had sliced Gary with the sword. She answered, Manson. He asked who stabbed Gary, and she responded, Bobby. Then Katz, for the prosecution, asked her about the pillow over Hinman's face. Mary admitted that she and Susan took turns holding it down, smothering Gary, to silence the death rattle after he had been stabbed in the chest by Beausoleil. Katz also wanted to be clear on why she had signed a false affidavit recanting her testimony ahead of sentencing. Prosecutor Katz, you contrived the fact that you would execute a false affidavit to secure a new trial for Mr. Beausoleil in the hopes that he would not receive the death penalty. Is that correct, as you told Judge Keene? Mary, yeah. She felt ashamed, knowing that her testimony was putting Bobby's life on the line. She wouldn't look at him in the courtroom. Bobby, Mary, look at me, please. Bobby then suggested that Mary was giving false testimony this time, perhaps because Whiteley and Gunther had threatened to charge her with murder, which meant she would lose her child. Bobby, okay, I'll ask one question and hope that I do get the truth. You testified in my trial previously in April that you saw me standing over Gary's body, but you didn't actually see me stab Gary, but you saw me standing over Gary's body with the knife. Was that statement correct or incorrect? Mary, it's like one of those questions, Bobby, that the DA feeds me. Could it have happened this way? But I can't say that it did happen that way. Right now, what happened at Gary's house? Did I actually see you standing over him? I can't recall right now. I can't picture it right now. Bobby, would you lie to save your child? Would you please tell me the truth? Mary, it's a hard question to answer. Bobby, that isn't an answer. Mary, what did you say? Bobby, that isn't an answer. Mary, you're right, it isn't an answer. Bobby, would you give me the answer to the question? Mary, look at me. Would you give me the answer to the question and give me the truth? You know the truth, and you know that I know the truth. Mary, Bobby, you know I'd do anything. Bobby, anything for the child? Mary, uh-huh. Bobby, including lying for him, isn't that correct? Is your answer yes? Mary, yes. Bobby, I want the truth. Did I kill Gary Hinman? Please look at me when you answer me. Graves made an objection on behalf of his client, and Bobby protested. Finally, the judge overruled the objection and pointedly asked Mary. Judge Keene, did he stab Mr. Hinman? Mary, yeah. Bobby's retrial motion was then denied. At sentencing, he was ordered to die. Kitty was in the courtroom when the sentence was handed down. She burst into sobs, falling into the arms of Beausoleil's parents.